Patricia, it really is such a tremendous honor to meet you again. Thank you so much for having us.
No, I'm really delighted to see you, and it's always, as you know, a great pleasure to be with you again. So thank you for coming to see me.
And I hear that it's actually the first time you have been interviewed by a Chinese media. Is that true?
It is indeed. Well, if you don't count the times when I was a minister and spoke to the British media in Hong Kong. So this is really the first Chinese media interview, I believe.
So what are your Chinese connections?
Well, I have worked with Chinese colleagues many years. As you know, I was at one stage deputy to the Lord Chancellor. And the Lord Chancellor, Derry Irvin, started a huge outreach program with the Chinese judiciary and the Chinese lawyers in 1997. And when I became his deputy in 1999, I had the great pleasure of working with a number of people in the Foreign Office when I was there. And then when I became his deputy in 2001, we continued this exchange between Chinese lawyers and ourselves, as well as visiting Beijing. And I also visited a number of other places like Hong Kong and Shenzhen, I think. I thought it was amazing, actually. It was, and the change in China was happening so quickly, almost before your eyes. I went to Shanghai, the first time I went to Shanghai. The buildings were extraordinarily. The next time I went up, it was as if the whole place had doubled. And the third time I went, it was just as if it was growing every second as you watched it. It was one of the most exciting cities I think I have ever been to, Shanghai. It was quite extraordinary.
So when's the first time you visited China?
I think it was as far back as 2000 or 2001, when I was still in the Lord Chancellor's department, I think. I should have looked up all the dates before I came.
I think you obviously had a very vivid, impression about China.
No, I did indeed, and I liked going, as you know, there's a lot of connection between Hong Kong and the United Kingdom, particularly the lawyers. So it's two systems, but one China.
In China, we are also working very, very hard, try to get more women to leadership positions, especially in politics, in business, in leadership, profession. But it's not easy. So have you got any tips?
Well, I think what I would say to every single person, particularly to women, is follow your passion and be really clear about what you want to do. If you are doing that which you love, it's never difficult. If you're forcing yourself to do something you really don't enjoy or have no appetite for, it will be very, very hard. So don't think ever, what do I want to be? Think, what do I want to do?
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. And I guess when you started as a barrister, I was very curious why you specialize in a family-related law rather than any other field.
I think it was because I've been very lucky. When I look back, I realize I was a very well-loved child. My family were not wealthy, but they were extremely wealthy in love and attention and kindness. And I know that all the things that I have achieved has been because I've been looked after and cared for and loved by my family. And I actually qualified when I was 21. And I believe that my experience of family life was everyone's experience. And I was so shocked when I realized that it wasn't everyone's experience. And it therefore made me incredibly sad when I saw children who did not have that level of love, care and affection, or when I saw men treat their wives not tenderly, not with respect, not with love, not with compassion, because I hadn't ever seen that when I was growing up. And it made me really passionate about saying every child, every adult should have the sort of nurturing environment that I grew up in, because that's our right. And no one has the responsibility or should feel they have the power to oppress and depress other people's hopes, aspirations, and their dreams. And I wanted to make some of that better. And so I found that although I started off only doing a small amount of family work, when I started to do public inquiries, I did public inquiries into child abuse and family abuse, then I suppose I just grew a reputation for doing that work. But it's been very worthwhile in all these years, very worthwhile indeed.
Definitely, I think, you point out very important points. I mean, love is everyone who are so, really keen to get, but it's not easy. But it's still not easy to be, quite successful as a career woman and at the same time try to manage a family with children. And in China we have the saying, women are half of the sky, but they are struggling try to make a balance to achieve both career and family success. But obviously you are done really well with 2 children, beautiful family, nice husbands, fantastic career. What are your top secrets?
I think it's hard work. And I think anyone who tells you it's easy aren't really telling you the truth, because most men have been socialized to have a woman who support them. And so they have all the woman's time, her attention. Most men aren't socialized to do that for most women. So you'll find many professional women have to do all the things that they have to do as wives and mothers and daughters and sisters and friends, as well as their workload. So I remember my husband and I once looked at each other and thought, we need a wife, because we need someone to look after the 2 of us. So I think most working women actually rely on other working women to support them. I had the benefit of having help in the home, which of course was fundamentally important, but it's always a difficult balance. I think it's getting easier because the expectations that women should do everything is no longer as acute as it used to be, and we're allowed not to be perfect in everything. Whereas before, I think lots of us felt we had to try.
That's very true. And let's switch back to your professional career, especially the legal career. And I remember as the Home Office, you were responsible for the criminal justice reform. And in China now, there is a lot of discussion about the reform of the justice system there. Yeah. So do you have any advice for us?
Well, I want to reassure our Chinese colleagues that they are just where all of us have been, because in 2001, I think it was, we had the Justice for All report, either 2001 or 2002, which basically told us that our criminal justice system was not fit for purpose. It had been an iterative system brought up slowly, carefully, but it didn't fit so well. So in 2003, I had to look again at how would we make this more functional. So I had a really simple formula which was helpful for us. I hope it'll be helpful for you. I looked at the needs. What do we need? I then did an audit of what did we have. So if those are our needs, this is what we have. I then did a gap analysis to find out where the things were that needed to be filled in, and we then had an action plan. We created a National Criminal Justice Board to bring everybody together, because what we realized is that the systems, bits of the system, were not talking to each other. So we created a National Criminal Justice Board with the Lord Chancellor, the Attorney General, the Home Office, the head of the police, the head of the court system, the head of the probation system, and we brought all the agencies who were responsible for delivering the criminal justice system together, and we did that every month. And we also created local criminal justice systems, local criminal justice boards, and we tried to get a common language. We tried to get common objectives, and we developed methods which enabled it to be easier for us to work together. I created an Office of Criminal Justice Reform, which had a little bit of everyone in it. Why? Because we found that nobody talked to each other, and we had silos. So we had to break down those silos. And through building partnerships, working hard, we managed to reduce crime to the lowest level it had been since 1981. But I have to tell you that we took something from China.
Oh, really?
Because when the Lord Chancellor first went to China to talk to his Chinese counterparts, they said to him, well, we allow the prosecutors to appeal against over-lenient sentences to the courts. And the Lord Chancellor said, we definitely do not do that. We would never do that. And then he started to think, and eventually he said, well, actually, they have a point, because if the court is too lenient, it may be that the public will be outraged that this has happened, and there is no redress on behalf of the public for this over-lenient sentence. So the Lord Chancellor thought a lot about what his Chinese colleagues had said. And in due course, we introduced the undue lenient sentences, which gave the power to the Attorney General that if they thought that no reasonable judge could possibly have come to this conclusion because it was too lenient, then, and if the public complained about this sentence, then the Attorney General was entitled to think about what the public said, make a decision, and go to the Court of Appeal on behalf of the public and ask for the sentence to be reviewed. And this was the Attorney General's unduly lenient sentencing power. And of course, when I became Attorney General, I had the duty to take cases on behalf of the public back to the court for them to think again, and that came from China.
So actually we keep on learning from each other.
We learn from each other all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
But I know there must be lots of exciting things and challenges during your term as the Attorney General. Could you maybe give us just top 3 of the most exciting and most challenging things you have had?
Well, as you know, the Attorney General of the United Kingdom is the advisor to the Queen, Parliament and Government. The Attorney also sits at the apex of the legal profession and has about 2,000 government legal services lawyers, but also is the head of the bar. And the third role is to be the supervisor and superintender of the prosecutorial authorities in our country. So that was quite a heavy burden. Sir Francis, when he was Attorney General, said it's the most painfulest place in the realm, and I think nothing has changed. So I think just discharging those 3 significant roles on behalf of the public is an extraordinary privilege and a huge burden, but one I was very honoured to do. One of the first things I did was take an unduly lenient sentence in relation to children who'd been sexually abused, 12-year-olds who'd been sexually abused. And I managed to persuade the Court of Appeal to double that sentence. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to make it very clear that if you abuse sexually, physically, a child under the age of consent, then that is something that we were going to deal with very, very strongly. Whilst I was Criminal Justice Minister, I had been able to craft the familial homicide new law, which would stop the defendants who were engaged jointly in killing a vulnerable person, particularly a child, from basically getting away with it. And I'm very proud that that offence was able to be used in the Re-P case in order to prosecute those who would otherwise have got away with killing this little boy. And I found that was I was pleased that we were able to bring justice on that area. But I'm also proud of creating the quintet, which is the 5 Attorneys General, bringing the Attorneys General of America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and ourselves together to work together, and also developing a more effective policy and approach to deal with fraud, anti-corruption, and helped to participate in the international drive to do that. And I was very proud to receive an award in Doha for the work and my contribution to anti-corruption in 2009. So there are lots of things that I'm pleased and proud to have been involved in, but I suppose there's just a couple of them.
But I remember you have been really actively promoting the pro bono work by lawyers, and could you tell us a bit more?
Yes, I have always been engaged in pro bono work, worked with those who've done it and supported it, and it was a great privilege for me when I became Attorney General to be able to create the International Attorney General's Pro Bono Committee, which was bringing together people across the profession, in universities and elsewhere in business, who were willing and able to help international lawyers elsewhere on human rights and other legal issues to help individuals secure the best interests and the rights of citizens all over the world. And we were able to reach out to ministers through the Ministers' Conference, Legal Ministers' Conference in the Commonwealth, but more widely. Everywhere I went, I tried to encourage lawyers to think about how they could assist the citizens, particularly those citizens who don't have enough money to have proper access to justice. So everywhere I went, every country I went, whether I went to Japan or China or Australia, New Zealand, America, anywhere I went, I took my pro bono flag with me, because I think if justice is to be real, it has to be open to everyone. And for access to justice to be real, we, the legal profession, have to play our part. And so I say that every good lawyer will do pro bono work. And someone once asked me, and they said, "But Patricia, how can you say that? I don't do pro bono." And I said, as I said, every good lawyer does pro bono work.
That's very great. And I noticed that you have dedicated a lot of your time to campaign against domestic violence internationally. And I wonder why you are so passionate about this issue.
I think it's because, according to the World Health Organization, domestic violence is suffered by 1 in 3 women in our world. It is the greatest cause of morbidity in women and girls worldwide. That means it kills and injures and causes more suffering to women and girls than anything else, more than malaria or HIV or road traffic accidents or any other thing. And what saddens me is if there was any disease that was killing and injuring 1 in 3 men or 1 in 3 women, other than domestic violence, we would be up in arms. I believe there is something we can do about that violence. That violence permeates all our societies. I wish I could tell you that there was a part of the world which is unaffected by it. That if you were 3'1" and had 1 leg and maybe 1 eye and were something that somehow you would be inured from it. It affects all of us, irrespective of our race, our color, our region, our religion, our ethnicity, our economic position. It's no respecter of peoples. And I think it's something, therefore, that the whole world needs to address. In the United Kingdom, it affected 1 in 4 women, 1 in 6 men, and between 750 and 950,000 children. When I started to do work on this, it represented 25% of all violent crime in our country. And we had 120 women being killed by their partner or their ex-partner. That means 2 or 3 women a week. Now these women have families. They have fathers, brothers, cousins, friends, children who loved them. And if you are a father and you see another man kill your daughter, it's very difficult to get over that or forget that. And if you are a child, to watch your parents fight and one kill the other, it's almost impossible for that child. But it's not just the extreme end of violence, it's the psychological violence, it's the emotional violence, it's the financial violence, which diminishes individuals. So it's not just the fact that they're killed. Many people commit suicide because they can't bear the pain of living in a situation which makes them feel so desperate. And these are all people of talent. As I said earlier, we cannot afford to waste one person's talent. And I always tend to think there, but for the grace of God. It's never happened to me, but it could have. And I think each of us need to say, if that was me, if that was happening to me, what would I like the rest of the people I know to do to help me? And would I be content to walk the other way? And I think it is the responsibility of all of us, because if it's 1 in 3 in the world, every single one of us knows someone, therefore, to whom this is happening, even if we don't know it. So it's really important for us to talk about it, for us to do whatever we can to make a difference. And we were able to build partnerships in the United Kingdom, getting people from business, from the third sector, from government, from local government, all of us coming together. And we created a multi-agency risk assessment approach. And together, we cut domestic violence in the United Kingdom by 64%. And we reduced the economic cost of domestic violence by £7.1 billion a year. Now, just imagine what our world would look like and feel like for men, women and children if we were to eradicate domestic violence, or even just reduce it to the same level that we've reduced it in the United Kingdom between 2003 and 2010. And that's what I'd like to see. I would like to see an elimination of domestic violence. I would like the number of men, women and children who die as a result of domestic violence to be reduced to naught. And I think if we choose, we can do it. But we need to choose and we need to work together. And that's why my global campaign for the Eliminate Domestic Violence Global Foundation won't stop until we have got that number 0.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.